have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
Welcome to another episode of John's Entitled Podcast, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. This episode is episode 100, a milestone, a landmark, some would say. And so I decided to reach out to a longtime friend, someone I've never actually really spoken to at length in person, and that would be Mr. Chae Hawk, Seamus Hawk if you are nasty, as they used to say. And yeah, I wanted to have him on for the 100th episode. He has been an integral part of this podcast, being the theme song, the song that kicks off, you know, everything that has been a part of this thing. Just a longtime friend, and it just felt really fitting. Felt really fitting to have him come on and celebrate 100 episodes in. But someone that's been with me for the last little bit is Mr. Daniel Terry. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Holy shit, 100 episodes.
I know. I figured I probably would have quit by now, honestly.
Yeah, well, that's what you got me for.
to slag it out for another 100?
Yeah, this is my first 100th episode. So, you know, I'm excited to be here. I've had to do none of the work. And I got to say, man, I'd like to thank my mother. I'd like to thank Elvis, Jesus, and John, of course.
Wow, I come right after Jesus.
Right after Jesus. It's the JJs, you know.
Yeah.
What would John do? What would Jesus do? You know.
You know, I probably wouldn't make a bracelet and sell it for money based off of something that people ask me what I would do.
I don't think Jesus sold the bracelet.
Well, he told someone to do it on his behalf.
Did he?
Yeah. Didn't he create everybody? Didn't he create everybody in his own image? Isn't that the crux of being self-granulizing?
Not exactly. Because then we could get into the, well, did Jesus make Jeffrey Dahmer in his own image?
Sure, why not? I mean, he died. But
that's it. You know, it's funny. Jeffrey Dahmer actually became a pretty devout religious dude before he got shanked in prison.
Well, you know, I'm sure once you've gone down the deep end on one side, you're like, well, let's see what this other side looks like.
Right. It's kind of like Darth Vader turning back, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, if you watch the Star Wars trilogies in reverse, it's pretty much what happens, right?
Right, essentially.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's a totally different discussion for a different podcast. Episode 100.
You know, it's kind of crazy. I've been thinking a lot over this past week, looking back at some of the episodes that I've done and some of the guests, and you know, honestly, it's one of those where there are definitely some where, you know, they're not all home runs, but I appreciate, you know, anybody who's taking the time to come on this thing. I mean, honestly, I think I can't remember the person who said this on YouTube, but I think he kind of said it best when you look at the 100 episodes I've done and you look at who I've had on. And this guy just goes, who the fuck are you? Should I know you? Are you someone important? And the answer to that is no. No, I am not. I am not anyone important. I'm not anyone special. I'm just somebody who listens to a bunch of podcasts, who has a love of music, and, you know, listening to hundreds of episodes of Kevin Smith's podcasts and Chris Hardwick's podcasts and all the things that those two have done. And, you know, their common sentiment between everything is just, you know, if you have a passion for something, just do it. Just pursue it. Have fun with it, even if it's only for you. And, you know, I started this, I had a really small idea of talking to people about their passions and so forth, and the idea initially was to kind of, you know, talk to people in bands and so forth that, you know, are interested in other things that maybe people don't know about and don't get to talk to, you know, the public at length about it. But then I kind of realized, isn't that sort of what the band thing is too? Like, it's something that they're passionate about, and yeah, they get to probably talk a lot more at length about it, but that's where maybe I, as a inquisitive person, just need to find a different route to go to get good answers out of them. And, you know, it's led me to talk to, I mean, still one of my favorite conversations I've had, which was still band and, you know, other passions of mine related, was, you know, having Andy from E-Tid on.
Yeah. That was a good one.
It was a lot of fun. I still listen to that sometimes after listening to his own podcast. I'm like, I just like the few moments. Like, there's a lot of like funny moments because he's just a genuinely funny dude. And talking, it's kind of weird in the sense of like the one I did with Porter from Atreyu. It's like I was really nervous about doing that, and then it's like I think I maybe said this the following podcast, but it was like when we're done chatting and he lives in Germany now, and we're on like a 6-hour time difference, and I'm grocery shopping after the interview, and I sent him the text like, hey, thanks for doing that again, and basically that was it. I didn't expect anything more, and then I just we just kept chatting, and then now over a year later, like in as much as someone can be friends with someone that doesn't live nearby or whatever, but I mean, it's genuinely like a thing where it's like I would say we're friends, and it's weird, like to have looked up to that band for so long, and him especially, and so forth, and now kind of call him a friend. It's very interesting solely because I started this thing.
Right, and I think the coolest thing about all of that is that you're getting to finally hear yourself interacting with these people. I think that to me, not that it's all about us, but like just getting to hear somebody that you respect and you followed for a long time, just getting to hear them interact with you and being able to play that back, like to me is the coolest part of it. And really getting to know people on a deeper level than just like, oh, hey, do you remember when you played that riff on that album? Like that was awesome. Like it doesn't have to be the Chris Farley show. It can be something a little bit deeper. And that's one of the things that attracted me to this podcast was just that the conversations that really hit are the ones that are personal.
Yeah.
The ones that are more heartfelt, that like, holy shit, there's a human being behind this whole deal, and they're an interesting human being, because I think all human beings have the capacity to be interesting, but sometimes when you're a musician or you're a public figure, it's a little bit harder to open up to people. And I think that's the most rewarding part about all this, is getting to know people that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten to know. You wouldn't have known their story or anything about them really, other than the products that they put out.
You're putting something out there, and it's kind of weird now to be judged as something that people come to. And I don't know if you've had that with discography discussion or being on anyone else's podcast, but it's just been very interesting to kind of see how people perceive you as the person to be versus how it is for you. I think you and I were talking a little bit ago about how sometimes in talking to these people, it's very surreal, because it's like you're with the headphones on, you're locked into a conversation with somebody from anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour or more, and then you're done and you go back to whatever it is you were doing, and it's like
to changing diapers.
Yeah, you just go back to whatever, and it's like sort of like getting somebody like, oh my, like most of my family and a lot of my friends don't necessarily know all the people I'm talking to, but like when it's like, hey, I got Jose from Incubus, and people are like, holy shit, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like you at least know Incubus, like the common person knows who Incubus is, so getting someone from Incubus is a big deal. And
right.
It was one of those where it's like, okay, like now I think people sort of can understand like what this thing is, and it's not just something I go hold myself up into a room and talk to nobodies.
Well, like you were saying, John, about like just putting it up there unedited and just in its glory. You wanted everybody to have the same experience that you had. Which was super positive. And yeah, I mean, people are always going to talk a little bit of shit. Like, yeah, sure, people have talked shit on discography discussion. Dan's annoying or too opinionated or too loud or whatever. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. And honestly, I always just take stuff like that as like, cool, people are listening to my shit. But I think it's funny though. With obviously, we're all better at editing than we were on day one. But I think. The thing is, though, is I think sometimes if people heard the shit that we say on this podcast, just when we're talking to each other, that we don't include in the podcast, like they would be cracking their shit up. Some of that behind the scenes stuff is so hilarious to me, and it bums me out because we edit, like you and I will do an episode, you and I will probably talk for a half hour prior, a half hour after. And, it's like, that's almost a whole another podcast worth of stuff. But we know that like, if it's not on topic, it doesn't really matter, so to speak. Yeah. But it is interesting. I think hopefully at one point people will find us entertaining enough to want to actually hear some of that stuff. And I think I think it's cool. Like I'm all about the long podcasts, like long free form, because like I tend to like the longer interviews, longer discussions, because like I hate doing like a 20-minute interview, or or when the person has really canned answers. Like you could listen to any podcast they're on and they tell you the same thing, and that sort of stuff really bugs me. And that's what's so cool though is I feel like, with some exceptions, we've more or less avoided that. At least since I've been on the show, we've, at least, even if we have a limited time frame or a limited window, you're able to pull stuff out of people that is interesting and fun to listen to. And I don't know where I'm going with all that, but it's just it's just been a really good experience for me to get to talk to a few people, to get to kind of listen to your interview style and kind of learn a few things. Because like I said, on my interview, like, I've never been strong on interviews as far as my other podcasts. Like, we basically are just guys that give their opinion on shit, But getting on here and doing the actual conversations and getting a little bit deeper on things, that's what I'm most excited about, man. And I think if everything works out well, we'll be on episode 200 and be like, holy shit, can you believe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, speaking to what you were saying about the whole, the conversations and the things we say before they potentially get edited out and all that kind of stuff. I think, what I've kind of been realizing too is it's not really so hard doing 2 episodes a week. And the whole reason I started doing the 2 episodes was to kind of get content off my computer that I've been sitting on for so long.
Right.
And I think what I'd like to do, and, we've talked about this quite a bit, is to potentially, we'll have one interview or so that we'll try to do a week, and maybe we'll be ahead, just as I think any good podcast should be. But I think maybe what I'd like to do, and what we've talked about doing, is maybe making, one episode, like maybe the one that goes up on Sunday, that's the main interview, that's the discussion for that week, and maybe Wednesday becomes, or Thursday, whatever day it ends up becoming. But I think the Sunday-Wednesday thing kind of works. But then Wednesday becomes a thing where maybe we talk about some new music that came out, some just kind of us bullshitting, like kind of like the thing you're talking about that you enjoy is just us having a conversation. Very much looking forward to the next 100 episodes, and I think we're gonna get to 200 a lot faster than we got to 100. But very much looking forward to it and seeing where we are in another 100.
There you go.
So without further ado, this will be my conversation with Chae Hawk. I'll talk to you at the end.
Yo, I'm ready, man. I got my beverage. Cheers.
To 100. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. Let's get into this so that way I don't take up too much of your time.
Cool, man.
So, I have the pleasure of talking with someone that I've known for a long time, and I couldn't think when I started doing this podcast he was one of the very first 5 people I wanted to get on this thing and talk to finally. So it felt very fitting to have him come on for my 100th episode, a milestone episode, someone that has supported me through all of the various endeavors I've gone into musically, as I have supported him over the last over 10 years. And I am speaking to none other than Chae Hawk. How are you doing?
Hey, John. Happy to be with you, man. Happy to be here.
It feels kind of surreal because, I mean, it's like, it went from trying to book you out here in the Midwest to, wanting to try to do various things with you to when I did this podcast, like I just said, like you were one of the first 5. I was like, this is like my first 5 who I'm going after. And, like, you definitely agreed to do it, but there was a lot of caveats of like, well, I want to try to do this. I want to make sure this is lined up. I want to make sure, like I come correct with it. So it was always like kind of one of those things too, where I was like, all right, like he's playing hard to get. I gotta like, get my shit good to like where he's like, all right, he's on the level now. Like now I can come fuck with this.
Nah, man, it's been an honor to watch you grow and evolve, and I appreciate you always looking out for me. So of course, man, it's time.
So I always like to get a little bit of a background as to who you are and what were some of your influences growing up that made you want to be an artist in every sense of the word.
Uh, Michael Jackson, man, Beat It. I would watch Beat It every day before kindergarten. I remember seeing Thriller, how it just completely impacted me. I was at my dad's office, man. That's my earliest memories, man. It's definitely Michael Jackson. But, as I got older, it was definitely, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre. Dre Day was another impactful visual that impacted me. And, just always being around, jazz music and music itself. And, it just evolves with that.
It's been kind of fun watching you grow, and I remember, as I said, like finding new music on MySpace. And I feel like, for those of us who are old enough to remember what MySpace was when it came out, it really was, for those of us who love music, was a great platform and a vehicle for us to all find new artists that maybe weren't mainstream or at the forefront of anything, but were just kind of like doing their own damn thing and getting their shit out. And that's how I found you. Like, I just found somebody who found somebody. Like, I just kind of went page hopping and then stumbled across your music. And I remember it was Meal Ticket actually that I found, and I was like, oh shit, this is really good. And then of course, it's Pretty Boy Stomp, where I was like, oh shit, I'm a Needsid fan, and you got Keith. Like, wow, I've never heard Keith on something like this. But before we even get to you as yourself, I feel like it'd be a disservice to not talk about Noble Truth, where you started
Oh
from,
my goodness. Yep.
and kind of talk about the Noble Truth years, because I think there's a lot in the name, and even in the music itself, it was, drastically different from what you would end up kind of doing. You've always
Yeah.
evolved. So, I mean, let's talk
Yeah.
about Noble Truth for a little bit.
Well, rest in peace to Noble Truth, man. He definitely taught me a lot with my growth. Noble Truth, he came about in my high school days. So when I was about a junior, I started doing my own things independently, working with producers in school and, some of my older peers that were around me in the community. But yeah, man, that was my first real page in the art and working with others. And yeah, Precise Precision was definitely a popular piece that I was able to, physically print. I was that dude who had the CD, you know what I'm saying? The first show that, first real big show that I did on my own was at Showplace Theater, where, people came in, $10, they got a CD, but they got the show. And, that was definitely the first groundbreaking experience for me as an artist. And, through MySpace. So, yeah, that was definitely the channel that turned a lot of attention onto me. So yeah, rest in peace, Noble Truth.
Being able to look back now at that time frame, you know, a lot of people in their high school time frame, or in their early late teens, early 20s, a lot of people don't know who they are, don't know what they want to be. And it has seemed, from an outsider's perspective, you've always kind of known that this is something that you wanted to do, something creatively, and that you always wanted to be an artist. I mean,
Yeah,
even kind of looking at the videos, if you can find them on the internet, of Noble Truth, that there's narratives even back then to go along
yeah,
with the songs. And it's like, to be so young and to have the thought to think of everything as a whole, not just an individual. Like, I have the music, I have no creative thoughts of what it looks like to represent my art in a visual format. It seems like that's always been something you've married very well, is a
thank you,
narrative visually to your narrative vocally.
thank you. I applaud my upbringing. My friends, my high school experience. Definitely helped to cultivate my creativity. At an early age, I was watching a lot of things beyond my time and listening to things. And I was around older peers, so I was able to get a lot of that, those teachings, that knowledge as a seed. So, but yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging that, man. That's definitely something I do take pride in. Definitely.
So, kind of in shifting from Noble Truth, kind of the early beginnings, you started off. What goes into, ending one career as an artist under one moniker, to where you then kind of become comfortable with becoming yourself?
Mm.
What goes into that progress and process?
Yeah, growing up, man, age. Noble Truth was. It got to a point in time as I got older. My name is Chae Hawk. And I'm blessed to have a strong, beautiful name given by my parents, and people would call me Chae, and as I was starting to really experience the music business and, traveling a little bit, and I was starting to veer away from Noble Truth. Noble Truth was more of, he was just seeking, I grew up listening to a lot of Dilated Peoples, Deftones, I was always, I wanted to seek answers as a young kid, and I still do. But there was a certain level of innocence that was with Noble Truth. So at a point in time, as I was evolving as a brand, as an artist, um, even as a performer, Chae Hawk, that's me, and my music just started to evolve and manifest to me, so that's the best way to put it. Rest in peace, Sound Lab. That was a Sound Lab show where we buried the name properly. So
A very what is it, a Viking funeral of sorts, where you kind of like lay it to rest
yeah,
in the truest
yeah,
sense.
in the best sense possible, you know.
Like having been a fan from Nickel City Varsity, and the imagery of the album cover of you eating gummy worms out with chopsticks still always sticks out in my head, because that was something else I bonded over, like in a really weird sense. Is like I'm not much on chocolate, or like a lot of other, like I don't eat cakes and shit like that. Like that's not me. But throw some Sour Patch Kids or like anything sugary and candy, like I'm all about it. So it's like when I saw that, I was like, all right, this is an interesting like album cover, and I didn't really understand that like Nickel City is a reference to Buffalo. Like you very much have always, even in your music, even if it's fun, like you take a song like Pretty Boy Stomp, or you take anything off of Nickel City Varsity, where there's a little bit of play, but seriousness at the same time, and you really get a sense of who you are, which is kind of always why I wondered if the change was that like you started focusing more on talking about yourself as opposed to a character that you were playing in Noble Truth.
Mm-hmm.
But even very early on, you've always put Buffalo like on your back, on your shoulders, like
Mm-hmm.
you wear it with a badge of pride. And a lot of people tend to do that with where they're from, but like from such an early place, like Buffalo obviously has meant a lot to you. So I kind of wanted to know, as a native of Buffalo, what does Buffalo represent to you, and why has it always been such a integral part of your music to make sure that it is represented in everything you do?
Well, first you gotta think of the people that have come out of Buffalo. Much respect to my brother Keith Buckley, who definitely assisted me along my path. And you got bands like Snapcase, and you got artists like Rick James. And the one thing about Buffalo is a lot of these brands, actually, other than E-Tid, have really popped outside of the city. So it's a Rust Belt spirit. It's got an old guard, a lot of old money. There's not a lot of vision with the community, but there's a aliveness to it. There's a lot of unique characters. There's a lot of people that do stand out, but it's like a bubble. So with Nickel City Varsity, that was more of the youth experience. It's definitely a drinking town. They have huge pride, and we're definitely special. We have something unique that the world has still yet to really identify and tap into. But that's pretty much, that was the channel. That was the channel that kind of came out of the sound. Big ups to my man Jay, a lion. He's a longtime collaborator. That was the project that got us a lot of the attention. Meal Ticket was produced by our guys, Young Boys, and Keith Buckley was a huge assistance to me finding my way out when I had management out in Connecticut, and I owe the Nickel City Varsity image brand to them, to Peter, my manager at the time. He saw that vision, and we executed it. But I've always been a candy fan. Every show I would throw out miscellaneous treats. So yeah. But I don't know if that really answers your question about the spirit of the town, or
Well, I mean, I'm gonna find out firsthand in December what Buffalo is all about, because I'm coming for the Eats It Christmas show finally.
Hey, now
So
we can officially throw some whiskey in the air.
we can do that. I'm looking forward to it. Kind of speaking though to in the last like couple of weeks of listening to your discography, and kind of really trying to find things maybe that I have missed over the years of listening to your music. Something that I kind of identified with from going from Nickel City Varsity to Journey of a Bluesman, which was your next record, was I kind of started realizing how it represents literally like different phases of growing up. So it's like
Mm.
Nickel City Varsity to me was like your young 20s, you're having fun. It's the time of your life. You're out of school, no one can tell you what the fuck to do. It's that young attitude of just like I fucking got it. Like I got it from
Mm-hmm.
here. But then you get to Journey of a Bluesman.
Blues of a Journeyman.
Blues of a Journeyman. Sorry, I flipped it around.
It's okay.
I kind of like the other way though too, because it kind of goes right where I'm going with this though. But it's
That
like
is.
you listen to it, and just from the opening notes of the song, like from the album all the way through, it's about the kind of trials and tribulations of trying to find who you are becoming as an adult from those
Yeah.
early 20s and the mistakes you make, and just the and trying to figure out who you are trying to become.
Mm.
And there's so much of that where I feel like you grew so much as a person and as an artist, and I kind of wanted to have you talk a little bit about that, assuming I'm right, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tatted on My Flesh is Trials and Rehabilitations, one of the tracks off of the Noble Truth Project's Precise Precision. But yeah, you hit it on the nail, man. I've just been very sincere with my craft and being honest through my music of the experiences that I live. I never could really get into that fiction, rap. A lot of artists, a lot of kids can go into this reality, this make
Reality
believe,
rap.
well, make believe reality, where I try to stick it to my reality as best as possible. So to grow, and now, the content that we've been currently working on, and where I'm at as I get older, man, it's just it's been a blessing and an honor to stay true to that, and stay true to the craft, because it's been rewarding me with great material, and it keeps me going, and things are getting better, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Kind of in speaking around that time, that was where you were, working with, was it Joel Madden at the time?
Joe Madden was on the album. I wasn't
Yep.
working close with him. I was working with his brother Josh Madden,
Okay.
who's a tastemaker in the community, and we were able to get the record through one of his engineers, and yeah, that was definitely something that really connected with the type of vibe, what we represent, coming out of a struggle, but that's what life is, man. You really got to embrace and learn from those struggles. So that was a perfect match.
Excuse me. And kind of thinking back to that time frame too, you had made friends with I think it was the White Tie Affair, and even guested on a
Oh
song of
yeah,
theirs. I think you
yeah.
did some of the dates of Warped Tour that they had done, I believe.
Yeah, it really all started with Forever the Sickest Kids.
Mm-hmm.
My man Kyle, he discovered me on MySpace. It was a weird scenario. The people that I was working with in Connecticut, they were bumping nothing but Forever the Sickest Kids, and I think there was a song called "Hey Brittany, You're Old Brittany," and they would always make fun of this chick with that song or something. I don't know, but and random enough, like probably about a month since being in Connecticut, I just get a random MySpace inbox from Kyle from the band late at night, and I was like, "What the fuck?" It was just, it was so random, weird, but we followed up, and he was in New York at the time, and they just brought me out and showed crazy love, and then from there, it stemmed into labels paying attention to me, and I was able to get the attention of my man Sean from the White Tie Affair, and they showed me crazy love, and much love to all my brothers in these bands, because they just gave me my early experiences to really latch on to and learn from.
What kind of things, going with bands like that aren't necessarily in your, I would say your demo. It's kind of hard to say demographic because I don't feel like you. I feel like you apply it to or appeal to a wide demographic, but
Well, especially then, I know what
yeah.
you mean, but especially then.
But like, what is it? What do you, as someone who like gets to, you went on these tours and so forth, and I've kind of spoken on this podcast about the experience I had when I went to Warped Tour last year and got one of those like no escort needed passes, and my thing was just watching the people working at Warped Tour really is what I paid attention to, because it's so crazy to see shit like that as someone who puts on shows, just like this zenith of putting on a show night in and night out at this level. So as an artist for yourself, what is going around on some of these tours, or going to like a Warped Tour that at that point in your career, what does that look like for you? Like, what are you gleaming from everybody?
I was just soaking it all in, man. The experience to perform in front of a complete different marketplace, to see how the bands work together, to see how friendships are made on the road. A lot of camaraderie. A lot of great positive energy in that type of community. You don't really see that too much in the hip hop community based on the work ethic of the rock bands, because they're always on the road. They rely on that. Now, since hip hop is and rap is the most popular genre, now a lot of these kids are getting active like that culture. They have to. So, but at that time, it was just great to see the love, and cats just out there playing their songs and playing their hearts out every night. So it was something that I really held tight to, and look forward to experience with my team, and doing it right.
No, totally. And I always, it always was just kind of crazy to see, like, it seemed like you were always like potentially just one other connection away from just blowing the fuck up. Like at that point, like it just seemed like you're like, I'm on Warped Tour with these people, and it's like, all right, like Warped Tour is just like a hotbed for like just networking and networking and networking, and you get someone like Kevin Lyman who, if he takes to some, he loves finding the small bands that no one knows about. And making stars out of them and putting them in front of people to be successful like he knows that they can be. And
so is it true? Is it true that it's a wrap for Warped Tour?
So here's what I've heard. And people on the tour, I know people on the tour. Here's what I think is going to happen, just from somebody who pays attention to shit and just how things seem to be. There are no touring festivals like this anymore. When your Mayhem festivals, all your metal festivals, your Ozfest and so forth, have gone away. The way that it seems that it needs to go now is it becomes destination festivals. So at this point, I think, all they have said, and very much have made very poignant to point out, this is the last full country run of Warped Tour. Not that it's the last Warped Tour, it's the full run of the Warped Tour. So I think if you're paying attention to the verbiage that they're using, it's the last cross-country tour, not the last Warped Tour. I think you're going to see Warped Tour maybe do like 4 dates where you do a New York, you do a Chicago, you do Texas, and California. That's my guess. Because you look at something like Ozfest went away for a little bit, and now they pair up with the Slipknot Fest, the Knot Fest, and it's like Slipknot via Ozfest thing. So you get the Ozfest one day, and then you get the Knot Fest the next day, and it's like a 2-day festival in a destination. They do like Mexico City, and then they'll do somewhere else. So I think that's the model that the business has gone into now, is that you can't sustain a full tour unless you're like of that nature. But you can sustain a traveling fest, and then that opens up, instead of taking a band's, which is we can admit touring is the only staple that live bands have to make money anymore. So instead of making a band commit and maybe overpaying a band to be on your full tour, if you're like, hey, insert whatever band here, like if you could give us this one day while you're on a tour, that would work. Now you're on a festival. It's what, the European festival market sort of does. Like bands base their, tour routing around these festivals overseas, where it's like we know we have these dates, and we're going to play some off dates around there. And maybe we'll pair together with some of these other bands and create, a very unique package tour that's like 3-4 dates going somewhere, and then we branch off. And I mean, I saw Deftones. I mean, you brought up Deftones earlier. Deftones did that on the self-titled record, where I saw them, and it was Thursday, Thrice, and Deftones.
Gotcha.
And then as soon as that was a 2-date
triple threat,
and it was like Deftones on self-titled, Thursday on War All the Time, and Thrice just before Artist in the Ambulance had came out. And then I think it was Thrice that hopped off, and then Thursday that hopped off, and then it was Deftones, Poison the Well, Thrice. So, I mean, you see shit like that. Like, if you go back in the day, like, a lot of bands did that, where it's like, okay, I can fulfill, these 2 or 3 dates, then this band will come on, we'll hop off, this other band will come on. And I think that's kind of what the destination festivals have kind of done, is allow people to start pairing in weird, like, headlining type things.
Gotcha.
So I think that's what it is. I think that's what we're going to see with Warped Tour. It seems to make financial sense, so the brand can keep going, because it's still a strong brand. And this is all from someone who...
salute to Kevin Lyman, man.
I was going to say, this is all from someone who is not in the music industry at all, not in the music business thing, just as someone who watches and listens to a lot of people talk.
Nah, you're in the business, bro. You know what it is. You know what it is, man. You're a
But
power player now.
I had someone tell me, shout out to Susie Cole. She was from here in Grand Rapids, used to work at a radio station, local radio station. Now is the like head person at Apple Music for the rock and metal
Hey,
thing. So it's crazy to see how someone from here can make it. But like she made a
hey,
comment a while ago. She's like, "You're media." And I was like, no, I'm not media. She goes, "You're fucking media. Whether you realize it or not, you now are media. You're a part of this."
yeah.
And I go,
You're a weapon, man. You ask
"It's
questions, bro.
yeah." So I mean, it was one of those that like it wasn't until she said that I very much kind of I felt like that the kid in the fucking one of my favorite movies, Almost Famous, when the guy's like, "You're the fucking enemy," and I was like, "Shit." Fuck, I guess I am that kid now. That's like I'm writing or things that get said to me could make news or whatever, but I don't think of it
Mm-hmm.
like that. So it's weird to think of myself now in that realm.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
So kind of jumping off from Blues of a Journeyman and going into Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted. You know, you at the time had teased that. I felt like for a while, like you know that something new was on the horizon. I remember you telling me like you would sneak little like snippets of shit, and you're like, you know, I keep and you know like I was saying earlier about how I feel like your music and the albums you put out represent a time frame, a time
Yeah.
stamp of your life. And I feel
Yeah.
like so if I said Nickel City Varsity is your young 20s, your youthful exuberance, you know, Blues of a Journeyman is your mid to late 20s looking at the
Yeah.
future of how you want to be, who you want to be as an adult. Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted, I feel like, is you coming into yourself as an adult, fully realized, actualized as an artist. And not only did you really expand upon your sound, but you went somewhere completely differently with the visuals. Like,
Yeah.
you had made comments to me to like, new music's coming, new music's coming. However, I have this other thing that I need to do to represent where I'm going.
Yeah.
And it became so much about the full on immersive experience. Like I was saying with the Noble Truth stuff, where there's the seeds there, but it's now blossomed into this full on thing. So you know, I kind of always wanted to know a little bit about the progression from Blues of a Journeyman to Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted for you as an individual.
Well, with blues, that was when I was really traveling. You know, my goal was to make Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted, and you know, that was like a 4 to 5 year quest of trying to get to that space. But while I was trying to get there, living in California and Chicago and traveling around back and forth, that's how Blues of a Journeyman was conceived, because it wasn't the vision that I saw for Dance Party, but you know, the only song that I made at that time frame was Suburban Vixen, that was put
Okay.
into dance, that was put in Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted. But you know, meeting new producers in California was Blues. You know, I was able to work with my man Sean P from White Tie and Blues. You know, Chris Wallace also from White Tie Affair. You know, we spent some time out in Carlsbad, and writing and recording. So I was really immersed in the creative process. You know, working with a writer and myself. Because I've done a lot of my content by myself, just working with other producers. So that was like my first experience really sitting down with somebody to help pull some things out of me. So during that stage, that was Blues. And then coming back home and recognizing where the internet was, like Facebook, and I'm back home. How am I gonna make this project? So I just saw what Facebook was doing, saw that there was a little community buzzing, with younger talent in my city. It's very hard to market yourself in Buffalo, because there's not many venue spaces that are open to mentoring. There's not a lot of mentorship at all in Buffalo, and that's what I found a lot of, which was very discouraging. Which allowed me to move out to live in these spaces like Chicago or New York or LA. That's when I found my true value. When I left Buffalo was when I really understood my real value as an artist, because I was working with celebrities and people were fucking with me. So coming back home, I recognized let me be for my community now that I didn't receive when I was young, what I needed, and I needed mentorship, I needed guidance. So I just turned up everything with Team Radio, and we started throwing more parties, house parties, bringing young opportunity to some talents around the city, showing them that experience, getting them out there. And while we were doing that, we were able to, find specific talent, and even from that, I ended up finding the young man Grabbits, who was able to assist me with my creative vision for Dance Party. He was definitely a super talented young man, and he came on board with me to help me with that vision. And creatively, we were able to make a lot of great content.
What's interesting too to me, and I don't know that I ever really. I don't know that I ever really thought about this in this sense until like a couple of weeks ago, but in listening to, your, because like on Nickel City Varsity you had Keith do the hook basically for Pretty Boy Stomp, uh, and then you kind of revisited that for a different interpretation of the song after the fact, and then I don't think it was on Blues of a Journeyman, unless maybe it was, but I know that you guys again did like a reimagining of the song where it was kind of slowed down, like halftime feel and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you end up doing chin ups with Keith, and to me, it's like it almost speaks to not only the creative maturity of you as an artist, but I also feel like the working relationship with Keith, and maybe where he was at the same time, and then including John from Snapcase in the track too, and. I don't know if you've ever really thought about that, like how collectively, like just there's a snapshot of you guys from then, like from Nickel City Varsity, to this snapshot of you for Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted, and just how much you both have grown. And you just spoke to you not realizing your worth until you left Buffalo. And I kind of have wondered, like, is that something that like maybe you and Keith were able to bond over, like the constant touring that band had really done since then, and just kind of.
Well, regardless, a lot of people don't know that Keith and I were born on the same day, different years. So we're both Scorpio babies. So that connection is real deep. So creatively, we just connected, and when we did chin ups, that was a process in itself. Around the time. Lance Diamond, rest in peace. We were able to, all come together at GCR Studios, which is the Google Dolls space in Buffalo, and we were able to bond. Keith laid down the melody, and it took me over a year to get the second verse for Chin Ups. And
oh wow,
but the process of that was just so organic, man, and shout out to Woody's Produce out in LA. He was also the one who did Nickel City Bounce. No, I'm sorry, Pretty Boy Stomp, the remix.
Okay.
With Keith out of LA. But yeah, he did that beat, and obviously pulling in John, because when I was a kid, there was a young man, Jamie Searle, who I grew up with, a good friend of mine. He's in a band, Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad out of Rochester, reggae band. But he, there was times where we used to smoke, for class, and he would put me on a Snapcase and, just put me on all these different bands when we were in his Toyota minivan before we were in class. And, when I came to Buffalo, I was getting tattooed by my man Josh Woods.
Friend of ours, mutual.
Yeah, Josh, he always blessed me with the ill pieces. I need to connect. I need to connect with him, man. I need a Wally piece, man. I need Wally with a Shine sticker in his hand. So, but while I was getting tattooed by him, John was also getting tattooed by Don. Tattoo Dons, and that was how I was able to meet John from Snapcase, and we formed a relationship, man, as early as I think it was like maybe 2004, 2003. So it was just spirit of friendships, man. I brought it together the right way. I wanted to hear it that way, and they both blessed me that way. So I'm thankful for them.
Do you, out of curiosity, because I mean, it's hard for me to know this since I was already a fan, but did that song, with having the pedigree of John from Snapcase and Keith from Eats It, like with both of their brands being what they were at the time, did that kind of get you a different look from a different demographic at all?
Of course, of course. And that's always been a blessing, because when kids come up, they just say, I don't really listen to rap, but I rock with you. That's always been something that has been common, in conversations. But the value of being accepted and embraced by those communities. That's I grew up listening to these records though as well. I've been a big part of the hardcore scene and respecting the culture, and but it runs deeper than all that shit. It's just
Yeah.
being but other than that, it's just been a blessing to have my peers who are in these legendary bands, rock with me that way as a friend. So, hey.
And kind of speaking, to that album, Dance Party for the Heavy Hearted, it was really interesting to see you come out with this trilogy of videos. And so how, I feel like you don't ever do anything half-assed and everything's, thought out so far in advance. Did you know going into the making of this record that once the record was done and it came time to think about the visuals to accompany the record, did you know that you were going to do a trilogy and what those 3 songs were going to be, and that you were going to tie something between all of them?
No, it was more of the flow. It was more of the process. Dealing with the songs that we were feeling out the gate. I know Heartlock was the first release, which was more of a dubstep blend.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was Remember This Night. And then, I started developing a relationship with my guy, Michael Lawrence, who's a cinematographer. He cracked it open with the trailer. And then he introduced me to Alex Ameling, who, was my collaborating partner on the visuals. And when we were able to connect, he didn't really want to make music videos. And I said, I didn't really want to make those motherfuckers either. I want to do like, more of a short film in essence of the spirit of the type of records that I'm putting out that can match that experience. So when it came to that, Chin Ups was Alex's favorite. And then, when we wanted to make one more, I chose Dinner Place, and that was his least favorite. He didn't like that song. But, a lot of people connected to that song. It's really personal. It's really deep, But, yeah, it just turned out beautifully, and we got a lot of touches, from the outside marketplace. And, yeah.
So I wanted to ask this because kind of a running theme from everything that I've been asking you is sort of what you've learned from the process of everything, from Noble Truth to going into your own name and so forth. And we kind of talked about the hat I'm wearing, which is a Team Radio hat. To me, knowing what this hat literally meant to you with some shit that you went through, that's why. And for those who may be listening who don't know, the whole point of the hat is basically, I think they picked an artist from a certain town in a few different cities to represent their towns and where they're from New Era, that is. And you were picked to represent Buffalo, and it means a lot to you to like I said earlier, what Buffalo means to you. It's always omnipresent in all your videos and all your music and so forth. And this hat represents, I think, who you are as an artist, who you are as a collective that you've grown with Team Radio and so forth. And so when someone, tells you to take it off and you don't, I think that really stands to show your character and what you believe in, because it's not just a hat. It represents so much more.
Correct.
So for me, like, I wear the hat with a more sense of pride because I know what this hat means.
Hey,
I
appreciate that.
So my thing is this. I know you've already kind of done an interview about that whole thing, but I just kind of maybe wanted to know, because you did make music after the fact of that whole incident going down. Where you kind of talk about it, but I'm wondering, since you haven't necessarily made more like a full-on album, and just given at the time of that happening, the political and just kind of the climate of everything going on in the world, what did that teach you?
To correct you, it wasn't the Team Radio hat that I had on. It was a black Buffalo Sabres hat.
Okay.
And the Buffalo Sabres were playing that night.
Okay.
And literally, the company that makes the hat, being New Era, is up the street. So
okay, I'm sorry. Stand corrected.
It's okay. The cop that checked me was a prick, and he's now doing federal time. He's responsible for a death at Molly's Pub. His karma's a real thing. But he told me to take off my hat, where a friend of mine was DJing at this space, Toro, rest in peace, good for it. I just said, hey, my man's the DJ. Let me give him the hat. And he said, no, that's not going to happen. And I looked in the club and I saw about 5, white gentlemen with their hats on dancing the night away. And I was like, hey, well, they're wearing their hat. And he's like, well, you're not. So, something happened where, he was distracted. I dipped into the club. My hat was off. He just pulled me out. But, the ironic thing was is we were there to celebrate. I was 10 people deep. We were there celebrating the commercial we just did for New Era.
Right.
So after dealing with this cop, there was another young man in my defense. He, got a little rowdy or whatever. And then he had another security guard cuff him. And then, me and this young man spent the night in jail over some hootenanny, but like I said, karma is real. This dude is in prison. I'm out here. So, that experience in itself made me question a lot about being an artist out of Buffalo, where it's very difficult to even put on for my city, for my community, and this is how they treat it. And it was really a weird feeling that I had, spending that night, in jail, thinking about that. And the next day my guy got me out, and all we did was we called the establishment to let them know what happened to me, and they were pricks about that as well. Talked to my parents about the situation, and then followed up with another call, and then they were pricks once again. And I got friends, and they assisted me, and then it ended up turning into more of a story where we also were able to put out chin ups at the time. But yeah, man, my issue is with the community itself. So at that time, we came out with a track called "Snap Back with Integrity." Which was more or less a theme because the company did show love prior, with hooking TR with some caps, but the value that we bring to a company like that is very top notch, because we are a winning undefeated team out of this city, doing some really great things creatively in the culture, where personally I feel they don't do too much to serve the culture and the community that that it's in. They still have yet to show that we've done things together, but since then, it's just been interesting with the public, with the Buffalo school system, the youth. There's a lot of problems going on in Buffalo. There's a lot of segregation. There's a lot of companies that could be doing a lot more to provide opportunities for the youth into the athletics. But people are busy doing what they're doing. But when you're an artist such as myself living in these things, it's what we write about. So, but I appreciate you honoring the cat, because that was a limited run. Can't say that ever happened again, but that's what I'm saying. Hold on to that cat.
So kind of in wrapping up, what's in store with you? It seems like, you're kind of mentoring, you're talking about that your city doesn't have a whole lot of mentorship, but it seems like you're kind of trying to fill that void for some of the local artists. And what do you have coming up with, Team Radio, with what you're doing and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I've been focused on my team. I've been working with my partners out of Niagara Falls, my man Sonny, my man Bless 3K. We've been working on some new songs, and everybody's been putting their mind to the pen and to the paper and on records. So been just developing a lot of projects here out of my city. Just becoming more of a business minded with knowing how to operate, but working with my guys, my creative spirit has still been able to fly. So I've been putting the things together for my next project. So we're excited about putting that together. I got the producers lined up. It's just got to get busy. But other than that, right.
Okay, there we go. So in closing, I always like to have the person plug their socials. Where can people find you?
Yeah, it's chaehawk.com, ChaeHawk.com, and then it has everything tagged on the bottom.
And then I always like to end these episodes out to a song. So what would you like me to play it out to?
Oh, my goodness, man. Ooh. let's do Michael Jackson, Ain't No Sunshine.
All right.
I don't know why I just said that. let's hit Michael. Let's hit with Michael.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for doing this, for taking this time. I know it's been a long time coming. I much appreciate it. and very much looking forward to whatever you got coming out next. And lastly, I need to get one of them shirts whenever you guys reprint it, even if I got to make one of myself.
Hey, you know, we get you. We got you. We got you.
Well, thank you again for taking the time, and man, 100 episodes. Thank you again.
Yo, John, congratulations. Very proud of you, brother. Stay focused in it.
Peace, man.
All right, brother. Peace.
So that was my chat with Chae Hawk. And just got to say, once again, thank you so much to Chae for coming on and having a conversation with me. Like you kind of heard throughout the whole thing, it was a long time coming. I've known that dude for about 15 years now, dating all the way back to the early days of MySpace. And guy's just been supportive in everything that I've done. And it means a lot for me to have him on as my 100th episode. And, you know, to a lot of people, some of the episodes I either have already done and put out recently, or some that I have that are upcoming might have been the ones that they might have deemed being 100 episodes. But I think if you haven't learned anything by this point about me, is I'm kind of a little bit unconventional, and sometimes it's not necessarily the biggest guest, the biggest name that means the most to me. It's the people who have been with me for so long and there's like a lot of loyalty there. And to me, I think that really came across in this episode. And I don't know, just really want to say thanks to Chae again. And Dan, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell you've been wanting to do that interview for a long time. And I think it's cool how it all kind of worked out. I mean, it almost seemed like a full circle kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was really cool. Dude has a lot of cool stories. And, you know, I just really liked the unconventional nature. I know recently we've done a little bit more formal style interviews, and so it was kind of nice to have kind of more of a kickback, kind of back to your roots kind of thing.
I mean, when you start your episode off with doing shots, like I think that's a pretty
absolutely,
telling tale.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, I thought, yeah, he was super chill, just loved to talk. You could tell you guys have kind of known each other for a little while. But never got to have this chat, you know, and that was interesting because I mean, you heard about this guy on MySpace back in the day. I mean, that's old school as all shit, man, and that's awesome though because that's the way we used to forge relationships online, you know. But back then it was just passing messages back and forth. We couldn't just Skype in like we do now, you know.
Did you ever get catfished in the MySpace days?
No. I wasn't looking for love, but I definitely did meet some people that, you know, said they were who they weren't, you know. There was a lot of that. There was a guy on MySpace a long time ago that was like basically trying to say he was Josh Skogan from The Chariot, you know. And I was like, no, I don't, you know, like it just didn't seem legit. So I actually sent an email to The Chariot's official email, you know, or whatever, and did actually get a response from the real Josh Skogan that was all like, no, I'm not on MySpace. You know, like, it was so funny. But yeah, there was a little bit of MySpace catfishing back in the day. But anyway, to more to your point, to the episode. No, I thought it was a really cool chat, man, and it sounded like you guys were really like, I don't know how to explain it, but just very real, you know. You know, dude's not on promoting his book. No. Or you know what I mean, like that sort of thing.
He actually has like nothing to promote at this point, which I mean, yeah. I think if you go back through a lot of the episodes I do, you know, I think that's the thing that I enjoy is getting people who have nothing, absolutely nothing to promote, because then at that point, like they genuinely just are having a conversation. There's no agenda of like, well, we got to get to this, and oh, let me ask you about this thing. It's like, no, you're just two people having a conversation.
Right. Over shots.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it definitely sounded like a bar conversation, and that's what you know, that's the kind of stuff I love. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been out with my friends and been like, God damn, I wish we were recording this, you know, because sometimes it gets really cool, it gets really real, and you know, it'd be nice in a perfect world to be recording everything, you know.
Yeah, I think that's kind of weird. I definitely know, like, and, you know, and having listened to a bunch of podcasts, you know, a lot of people will say, like, oh, you know, when we were talking beforehand, or, you know, I was having this conversation and I was thinking to myself, like, oh, fuck, I wish I had the microphones going. And it's one of those things where it gets very amusing to me where, you know, I've definitely gotten into that mode as well, where I'm like, ah, shit, you know, if we were just recording that'd have been so cool, because, like, you know, the way it was, you know, the way you said something, or, you know, a joke that happened, it's like, it's not going to be that setup ever again. And that's kind of what, like, sucks sometimes. So,
Yeah, you can't recreate greatness.
Since the first intro kind of ran a little long, we're going to kind of get to the business side of things. However, with 100 episodes in, I've been teasing for a little while that new things are afoot. Adding Dan, that was a new thing. New intro music, that's a new thing. We've had sponsors come on, that's a new thing. The website, johnsonsitlepod.com. It's still not like 100%, but I would say it's probably 98% done. So I mean, go check that out. I want to try to start driving traffic there. We're going to start having some cool stuff. If there are things about a website that you like, that you've seen, let me know. Definitely want to try to make a very user-friendly, website. But very excited to have this, to have a home page, literally for a home base for everything for the podcast. Slowly going to start working on integrating all the news headlines the podcast has made. Maybe even make a calendar of potential guests that are coming up that are confirmed. So that way, as part of the new change that I am going to bring up, as of now on the 100th episode, I am going to officially announce my Patreon page is up. The Patreon page has been up for a while. I just didn't feel the need to announce it yet. I kind of wanted to wait a little bit. And I think now's the time to do it. 100 episodes in, it's kind of the thing you do. It's real simple. You just go to Patreon, look up Johnson's Title Podcast. I will pop up. There's a little video with Allie in it, my black lab, for the sympathy angle, to try to get some money out of you. And basically... I'm just kind of looking to try to have most of my costs for hosting the podcast done. As everyone always says, podcasts aren't free. They're free for you. I'd like to keep them that way. But if you feel so inclined to throw a little bit of money to the podcast, it is greatly appreciated. And we'll go basically back into the podcast. I know that's a sentiment that's been echoed to death, but I'm currently, my laptop is doing halfway decent, but I definitely need an upgrade after it took a shit on me earlier this year. Tech support basically told me to start planning on getting a new computer sooner than later, and so that is pretty much my next goal. I think beyond that, I would even like to maybe get a better webcam, and then maybe even get Dan one as well, so we can actually start posting video things. So if we end up doing the Wednesday chats where it's just him and I, like, we can put it up on YouTube and it'll look a little more professional, kind of like a Scott Bowling-esque looking video. And I just like I said, a lot of things I'd like to do with this podcast. And as I said, Patreon is a way to do it. One of the perks as of now, and let us know feedback. Let us know what you think of the perks that are on there. As of now, they're kind of generic, but I am having a new logo design made up for the podcast. It's not just going to be my face, because I think that's kind of weird when you have somebody else on the podcast.
It'll be my face. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to switch it up for the other 100. We'll switch back and forth. But no, so I'm having a podcast made up so that way, one of the things I wanted to do was get a cool design made up that would go good on a shirt and go good on some other things. And so I will be selling shirts eventually. And since I work at a screen printing place, I will actually have nice shirts for the same price as a lot of places charge you for shitty shirts. So we got a lot of stuff coming on. I think one of the things that I think was a lot of fun is there's a perk on there to come on as a co-host for some episodes. It's not a whole lot of money, but if you would like to just come on and bullshit with Dan and I during the intros and such, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Obviously, that would be limited to a couple episodes. I also got a perk on there where you can submit a question for me to ask during a chat. I'll let you know who's coming up, and if there's a question you want asked, you can do that. And then even we're going to start doing the cliche, for $1 you get a shout out on the podcast. I think that's super easy, and I think it's it's cool. I've done it on a couple podcasts, and I think it's kind of cool when you get to hear your name on said aloud amongst a bunch of other people's names. So, like I said, Patreon, Johnson's Title Podcast. There's some perks. We might be updating them as we kind of get into it and kind of get more feedback from you guys. But just want to say thank you for the support over 100 episodes and anyone who's listened to this. And so now we're going to do the other cliche thing, which is plugging socials. If you would like to follow our show sponsor, The Bean Bastard, you can find them at thebeanbastard.com. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at The Bean Bastard. And you can also find Moshpit Nation at moshpitnation.com. You can follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/moshpitnation West capital MI. Instagram and Twitter are simply Moshpit Nation. And if you would like to find Dan, where can they find you?
You can find me at Discuss Metal Dan on Twitter. You can find my other podcast at discussmetal.com. And you can always send me an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com.
And if you would also like to keep up with Chae Hawk, like you said, you can pretty much find him, Chae Hawk, super easy. You can also follow his crew, Team Radio. Follow them on Twitter, Team Radio LLC, I believe. And I unfortunately had to edit out the new title of the new album that he's working on, but rest assured there is new music coming soon, and very much looking forward to hearing it. But again, if you'd like to keep up with Chae at chaehawk.com, and on pretty much just search his name on socials. It's a pretty unique name, probably not going to find anybody else with it. And we are going to end this episode as we always do with a song. And as you heard Chae say, he wanted me to play Michael Jackson, Ain't No Sunshine. So without further ado, we're going to get into that, and we will talk to you next week.